look at my way too early picks for the 2025 Heisman Trophy because, well, we know that the guys that are up for the Heisman Trophy 2024 headed to the NFL, probably every last one of them is going to be something like a first-round draft pick, and that's a really good place to start the discussion around 2025, guys that we know are returning, where they're going to be playing, and frankly, who's got a lot of upside and who's going to start their career or continue their career at a place that we expect can play for the national championship. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, like this video so that you don't miss any of the segments that we upload here as we talk college football 24/7, 365. And it is getting to that time of year where we're playing for championships, right? At the time that you are probably watching this, Army-Navy is wrapping up. We're talking about an 8-3 program versus an 11-1 program. And in another week, we're going to be playing Friday Night Lights football in a for-real college football playoff that has so much going for it. And a couple of these players, you're probably going to see play during that playoff. But this one at the start, probably not. Bryce Underwood is one of my 4, I think, way too early candidates for the Heisman Trophy. Basically because he's #1 player in the class. He is the top-rated quarterback, and he is going to a school in Michigan that desperately needs a quarterback. Alex Orji just went into the transfer portal, basically clearing the way for Bryce Underwood to be the starter from day one. We'll see what the Jaytons think of all of this, but you got to look at what Bryce Underwood has done over the last couple of years and the flip from LSU to Michigan and what it could mean for Sharon Moore's year 2 after they go 7-5. If Bryce Underwood turns this program into the kind that is back to competing for the Big Ten championship game, it's going to be hard not to make him into a Heisman finalist of some kind. 2023 National Gatorade Player of the Year and threw for 3,165 yards with 47 total TDs, just 2 interceptions. Didn't have that great a statistical year in his senior year, but it didn't really matter. One of the things I also like to point out here is Chip Lindsey's going to be his offensive coordinator. Chip Lindsey, who's called plays on the offensive side for a very long time. 9 of the last 12 years, Chip Lindsey offenses have scored 30 points or more on average, and he helped tutor Drake May, who is a first-round draft pick to the New England Patriots. And the year that May played for Chip Lindsey, he threw 300 yards per game. He had 33 TDs, and that was not the most prolific season that Drake May had, but you could see how Chip Lindsey can take advantage of the kind of athleticism that Bryce Underwood has, to say nothing of Omarion Hampton, who is the best tailback that nobody talks about the last 2-3 years. I think you're going to have that sort of talent on display at Michigan, and you're going to be able to do some things. They got Oklahoma September 6th. I know that doesn't mean much to many Michigan fans, but Oklahoma fans can't wait to welcome Michigan to Norman, and we'll see how that game goes. This is going to be a very early good test of the SEC versus the Big Ten, and 2 marquee programs in both leagues, and not the first one that we're going to talk, or not the only one we're going to talk about in this particular segment. The next guy we got to talk about is Ryan Williams. Alabama wide receiver, had a breakout season. Doesn't turn 18 until February. He is second in the SEC in receiving touchdowns with 8. They're going to play Michigan. Probably going to put up a bunch more yards. He only had 2 100-yard receiving performances, but that's much more about the service that he was getting from Jalen Milroe or not. 134 yards receiving against Western Kentucky, and then famously 177 yards, 75-yard touchdown to help seal a win against Georgia in a game where they got to have it. Anybody who's seen Ryan Williams play knows that he is one of the 2 best wide receivers in the sport next year. Bar none, right? He has an opportunity to do what Devontae Smith did in 2020, and that's what it would take. He'd have to have the kind of 1,800-yard receiving season with a ton of touchdowns and probably lead Alabama to an undefeated season in an SEC championship to win that award. That means he's going to have great service. Jalen Milroe's probably not going to be his quarterback next year, so we'll find out for sure if he's going to have great service, but I think that he could be Devontae Smith. I also think he could be Jameson Williams. That's not a bad thing either. But Ryan Williams certainly has the ability and talent to win this award, and was one of the best players in the country, which is the starting point for winning the Heisman Trophy. Next guy we got to talk about is Arch Manning, Texas quarterback. I think Quinn Ewers going to the NFL, waffling a little bit, but Arch is the guy. He's the heir apparent. We got to see that in 6 games this year, particularly in relief against UTSA. We had 5 touchdowns. He threw 2 passes of 50 yards or more that went for TDs. He had a 67-yard rushing touchdown. He can move. He can sling it. He sees it. He looked great in UTSA. He looked great against ULM. He looked great against Mississippi State. And I expect that Steve Sarkisian is going to find creative ways to, frankly, move that dude around and have him in spectacular spaces to take advantage running and throwing the ball. And the last guy I think is a no-brainer for me, Jeremiah Smith. Best wide receiver in the sport 2025. He had 57 catches for 954 yards before they play their first-round game against Tennessee with 10 TDs. I mean, as a true freshman, he was the best wide receiver on one of the best teams in the country. Emeka Egbuka being gone, he's going to be the dominant number one and leader in that Zone 6 receiving core that only gets better. We're going to talk about Jeremiah Smith like we've been talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., Jaxon-Smith Njigba, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. But more than that, he could walk away from Ohio State as the best receiver who has ever played there. And he is on a short list of players that has generational talent, not unlike Travis Hunter. If you like the channel, please subscribe and like this video and leave me a comment. Let me know who you think the 2025 Heisman Trophy winner